Hey everyone, it's me, Jen, and I'm nothing if not intense. It's Sunday, December 9th. Why don't we jump back in for the Danley Deep Dive Part 4? I've just been a little inspired today, and I said, why the hell not? So when we left off in Part 3, Mary Lou had driven the van, brought it back to Mandalay Bay, did a valet transaction, went back to the room 32134 and ordered room service, and that ticket was closed out at approximately 1:37 in the afternoon. From 1:37 until the time all this stuff started, I don't know what she was doing, but I think that I caught her on cam at Mandalay Bay in an elevator at 10:36. So that's what you're looking at right now. This person right here, I believe, is Mary Lou Danley. Now, look at the Jimmy leg. Look at her left leg. That's a Jimmy leg. Look at the hair. I do have some other photographs we're going to compare, and if I was more talented, I would side-by-side this stuff for you, but I don't have time for that tonight. So maybe one day in the future, you know, when my photo editing becomes as great as my investigative prowess, I can do that. But today, that's not going to happen. And I just want to show you this so that you can see the timestamp. It was 10:36 on October 1st, and what I've found watching the control room, the security control room cam is this guy on the left, John, when he is watching the cams and he sees something, he doesn't necessarily stop right then. He goes past it, and then he comes back, and then he'll pause for a moment, but he doesn't react. He doesn't react typically to not much. I mean, there's a few times in here that he reacts, but for the most part, whatever's showing on those screens, he's not reacting. He was going through the elevators. Goes right past this one, and then all of a sudden, boom, he goes back. So I thought, well, I wonder who's in there. And holy camole, I'm like, that looks like Mary Lou Danley. Look at the Jimmy leg. The Jimmy leg gives it away for sure. The stance, the hair, the timing. So I thought, wow, you know, I had missed that before. And I don't even know what I was looking for. I was looking for something else, or just going back over this, not necessarily even anything related to Mary Lou. So, oh, excuse me. Oh, let's take a look at when she gets to Mandalay Bay on the 28th, and she's in valet right behind Paddock. So, oops, this is a screenshot from the CCTV footage from 9/28 that when Paddock arrived back at Mandalay Bay at around 9:45-ish, whatever, she pulls in within seconds. This car pulls in within seconds of Paddock. She gets out, and I'm like, that's Mary Lou. That is Mary Lou. Now, the Jimmy leg, I mean, you can't miss it. It's this left leg. It's the Jimmy leg. And that's the leg when she walks, kind of like, it's weird. It drags a little bit, but, so she's got a distinct walk, a distinct stance, and I wish I could compare the two photos better for you, but I can't. But I think this gives you a good idea, and to me, I mean, the hair, the stance, the Jimmy leg on the left, that's Mary Lou. So she's leaving the hotel. She's in an elevator at 10:36, and she's getting out of the hotel. Which brings us to 10:49 p.m., October 1st, when the officer that took somebody to UMC or whatever hospital is driving back towards Reno and Haven, I believe. And we get the couple people that are like, officer, officer. They're kind of sketchy, but yet they have some important things to tell this officer. So let's take a look.
Please be advised there's a subject on the helipad.
Did you copy? A 5-minute team going to floor 2.
I copy. Coming down easy as a possible. We know traffic down. Is there anyone else out there with him?
Right this way?
Yeah, 2 guys, listen to me.
Oh, my boy, follow me! Follow me! Right, come here, come here, come here, come here!
Can I get in and tell you that? Tell them to follow me. I stay on top of you guys. Hey, you.
Yeah.
Look, 2 white guys come through the back of my lot, came from around the backside. They were white. They said that they were looking for, what was her name? His girlfriend that was involved in the shooting.
And
It doesn't matter, okay?
Follow me! But no.
They went to the gun.
The same people have guns. We're looking for people with the rifles. Those are the ones who killed a lot of people right now.
Alright, then listen, okay?
What do you want me to do? Huh? You know where I'm at.
There's a big pickup truck. I don't know if it's a car.
It's great. Okay.
It has the lights in the front.
I'm gonna come back. I cannot approach somebody by myself. It's gonna be at least 3 or 4 of us. Okay.
So 186 San Diego.
In the airplane field, back there, directly behind the boat.
I'll come back.
On,
Stay right here. You're not gonna put myself. I'm going to the boat.
Go to the street.
You see my man?
Right.
Street over here? Yeah.
Right here.
Okay.
Clear. We're moving up to 32 with the LRT.
How many cases?
So that was an interesting exchange. But basically what she's saying is she had 2 guys run through the back lot where she lives. They were white guys. They had guns. They were driving a big gray pickup. And they were looking for the girlfriend of the shooter that was involved in the shooting, which would be one Miss Mary Lou Danley. Now, I've thought about this, and I do think that it was some type of plainclothes officers, because I think that the LVMPD knew way more about who and what was going on than they ever let on, even at this time. Because I know that Levi, in the body cam, you can hear him, he had Paddock's information, and he was giving it to somebody else, you know, a different CP, whatever, in the body cam in the foyer before they even breached any doors. So that was pretty early on. He had that information, and so I'm assuming if he had Paddock's information that he had some knowledge of Mary Lou Danley also. So who else knew about her? I'm sure there were quite a few in Lawn Ellie that knew about Mary Lou Danley by 10:51 on October 1st. They knew that she had been at the hotel, obviously, and they probably knew that she left since old John Boy saw her in the elevator. Just because that dude doesn't react doesn't mean he's not picking up the phone and calling somebody or alerting somebody to something. Because the more I've watched it, the more I see these patterns, especially with him and how he does things. So, again, anything important, he's probably just going to let it pass right on by him at first, and then he goes back to it. And then he pauses, he hesitates, and typically maybe even picks up the phone. Now, throughout that night, throughout that 3-hour video of that, there's a couple times where he does actually point to stuff, and so that's about as much of a reaction as you're going to get out of John Boy. But, so by 10 till 11 that night, they were looking for Mary Lou Danley in Las Vegas because they had knowledge that she was traveling with Paddock. And that's even what the sheriff tells us at his first press conference that they are looking for the companion who was traveling with the shooter. That would be Mary Lou Danley. That's Mary Lou Danley. Okay, so now we're at 10:51, October 1st. Now, you really didn't think we could get through this without seeing some of the sweaty chin chronicles of Officer Bitsko. This is Bitsko's body cam. It's after they've breached both doors, supposedly. Levi calls the CP, which I believe he is on the South Central channel versus the CCAC channel, because he is basically telling them or asking, hey, I found a player's card with a different name on it. It's a female, but I can give you that information, basically, if you want me to. Long pause. There's other officers talking, and after the pause, I can hear Levi say, talking about something, and I cannot catch the last two words. Then he doesn't announce it then. He waits about a minute, and then he switches channels, and that's when he makes that announcement. So we are going to listen to that. Hopefully the audio's okay. I just jacked with my equalizer a little bit, and it's probably not the greatest, but hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
There's that, and then there's a briefcase with a folder in here that I saw on the bed. I mean, we might want to pop that open just to see, or no? I don't know if you can. No, not. You can. Let's get the dog. Will you 445 dog? CB. I can get a 445 dog, but at this point, I'm not seeing anything 445 related. Okay. If we think that, if we have something, we can. The other room over here, they have things. Why don't we go take a look at it? We also found a chair. Players called us together and the casino is sitting out on the counter. Didn't really do that either. Yeah, but I'm not going to say run a dog. I'm going to say armor. Get armor up here and X-ray it, because that's weird enough that a dog doesn't alert us until not opening it. Okay. Corey, okay. Are you in touch with CP? I'm in touch with Ken. Okay. I'm really thinking this is just a one-guy thing.
Oh, I think I just understood what he said. I think he said talking about convention center, meaning maybe talking about switching to convention center and announcing that. Huh. I think that's what he said.
But what about all the other calls? Is that just people panicking over hanging out, or something? Switch radio to AD. We need to get this Pete over to his address. Okay. You get the CC on that. I'm not going to get on the radio. Levi, do you have any scoped weapons over there? Oh, yeah. Okay. Scoped weapons? Because he was blasting out the window. Tragicon. He was blasting out in this one with the high scope and like that. There's a whole suitcase full of loaded AK max.
Off subject, but did you hear what he just said? There's a whole suitcase full of loaded AK mags. AK mags, not AR mags, AK mags. Anyway, let's continue.
I didn't turn my goddamn camera on. Mine was on. I got everything you did. I counted 13 options. Oh, yeah, there's a scope. There's one right here by the window that he was sitting with. Controls for electronics information on a potentially delay possibly related to the suspect. There was a player's card that was out on the countertop next to the wallet. The suspect is 418 grade. Where did you see? I thought you got chicks in this room. Okay.
Now, I just noticed this tonight. What they just said. Whoever said, where did you see? And it's Newton with his lisp that said, she got checks in this room. She's got checks in this room. So, in a minute, when Levi trucks his butt into the master suite and announces that she shares the same address with the suspect, I believe he is reading that address off of her checkbook. So now we are supposed to believe Paddock had her player's card and her checkbook. Bullshit. Bullshit. Her checkbook is not going to be there if she's not there. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to be some other Asian female with her freaking checkbook. It's not going to be Paddock using her checkbook. No. It's her checkbook. It's there because she is there. Okay, so let's continue. So, again, Newton said she got checks in this room. I can't say it exactly how he said it, but now Levi is going to go into that master suite and read the address off. Time lapse 1 minute. From when he announced the player's card.
I'm just looking for 445 type stuff right now. Trying to see if there's... Control 020. It looks like that name I gave you shares an address with the suspect. We can give you that address if we need to send units there. What is it? 1372? Yep. It's 1372 Babbling Brook Court in Mesquite, Nevada. Babbling Brook Court.
Okay, so that was Levi reading her address off of her checks, off of her checkbook that was in the master suite on the bed in the room that she was using with Stephen Paddock. You see, Newton's got something in his hand he's reading. Bitsko said that there was the briefcase in there with the green folder, which there's a green folder on the bed. I didn't necessarily see a briefcase, but so there is more than just a player's card there for Mary Lou Danley. There is personal information. There is personal financial things. Her checkbook is there. Guess what? I'm not going to be somewhere where my checkbook isn't, which really, who writes checks anymore? But, you know, whatever. It's not going to happen. So I think that is huge. Huge. The bullshit fairy tale that they thought up, which wasn't very good, about the player's card and him using her ID is a load of crap. Because they never told us about the checkbook. Why did he have her checkbook? Well, he didn't have her checkbook. She had her checkbook. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. To be fair, they did tell us about the checkbook, or tell us that there was a checkbook on that bed. However, they just failed to mention that it was Mary Lou's checkbook. I always assumed that it was Paddock's checkbook, because it reads, the following items were located on the bed: a Dell laptop computer, a passport in the name of Stephen Paddock, 4 Home Depot gift cards, a checkbook, and a cash-out voucher for Palms Casino dated 8/28/17. to me, that reads as if all that stuff was Paddock's, and that's what I always thought. But no, that checkbook was Mary Lou Danley's. And I'm in the FIT report, the prelim report, not the final report. What's contained in this report, and I keyed on this from the very beginning, I always questioned this paragraph. LVMPD officers located several documents to include photographs identifying Paddock as the suspect who was laying on the floor with an apparent gunshot wound to the head. Also located inside the room, investigators found documentation related to Danley, who was later identified as the longtime girlfriend of Paddock. So, to me, I said, and I think I may have did a video about it, I'm not sure, that documentation related to Danley, I'm like, that's got to be more than just a player's card. The way that reads, there had to have been more than just a player's card. Well, obviously, now we know there was. And then I questioned the several documents to include photographs identifying Paddock as the suspect. Because if you'll remember, there were reports or rumors, whatever you want to call them, in the early days of the investigation and after the incident, that there was Antifa literature throughout the rooms. Did that have a picture on it? I don't know. I mean, I just always thought that that was a weird paragraph. Well, guess what? I don't believe that paragraph is contained anywhere in the final report. I think they shit-canned that whole paragraph. I just looked, but I have like 4 big binders of stuff right now that I'm working with, and one of the binders hit my laptop, and I thought it deleted my whole video that I had already had like 19 minutes in on. So I'm not going to look too much harder, but I don't think that that paragraph is in the final report. But I keyed on this paragraph from the beginning and thought, that just doesn't, it doesn't speak to the narrative at all. It reads totally different than what they are telling us from the narrative. That takes us to, so that's taken us to about 11:45 October 1st. Well, what I see and what I think is that Mary Lou Danley was in that elevator at 10:36. There were 2 men with guns looking for her out in the streets by 10:45, 10:50 that night. So people were aware of her presence. I'm sure of it. We have Levi, who, you know, specifically calls the CP before announcing anything and gets the go-ahead. So, you know, it's not his bad that he announced that, but really I don't think that that was, her information was probably never supposed to be put out there. Because as you'll see in part 5, once we get going a little bit more, and it's really starting to get good now, because the chase is on. They need to find her and they need to contain her. That's what their mission is. What was my point? I can't remember. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. So he announced her information over the scanner, so the public was aware of it. They dispatched officers 11:40, 11:45 that night to get to the house in Mesquite. Next, in part 5, we're going to see where they think that she's heading to Mesquite. So my developing theory with that was, initially the first press conference that Lombardo was going to hold it was supposed to be like at 12:30, 12:45. Well, he didn't end up doing his first press conference until 1:31 a.m. And this is just my theory, but I think because they thought that they were going to find her in Mesquite, because for whatever reason they thought that's where she was heading. It takes an hour, hour and 15 minutes to get there. And again, this is just my brain working, my theory, that they would get officers there, they could contain her, they would find her, they would contain her, and Lombardo would do his first press conference and not even have to bring her up. However, that wasn't the case. She wasn't in Mesquite. They didn't find her. So now what? They need the public's help. They need the public's help in finding her. And that's what they did. So that's when they got it out at the press conference. And maybe that's why there was a delay in that press conference, figuring out how they were going to handle that situation. What were they going to do with her? Because once the MGM liaison showed up at the CP, that's when the lone shooter narrative really started to develop, I believe. And that's when they really started to push it. So she's not going to fit. She doesn't fit with the lone shooter narrative at all. And there's probably other reasons why they needed to contain her. I don't know. But that certainly was one of them, that she just does not, she's not going to fit in that scenario. The scenario that they're going to make up is not big enough for Mary Lou Danley. So they needed to find her, they needed to contain her, and they needed to have her in their control. End of story. And that is what transpired next, and that's what we're going to get into in part 5. So, oh man, I might have went a little bit long on this, I don't know, but whew, we're getting there, guys, we're getting there. I'm going to go ham on this, just as ham as they went on, you know, shoving that narrative down our throat. I'm going to go ham on the truth. So, I hope you enjoyed. Oh, let's get through this week, and I look forward to being back with you soon. Click, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You guys know what to do. I will make sure I get the links in the description, and then my information's in the descriptions too if you would like to support my work. That would be greatly appreciated. So have a great Monday, everybody, and I will be back with you soon. Thank you so much.